Hi there, everyone. My name is Christian Eschbach, and welcome to another one of my album reviews. So we are going to be starting up another triple shot again. I like doing these triple shots; they're fun. That way, I can do a little bit of a comparison, have a little bit of fun with the albums I'm talking about. Today's triple shot, well, I shouldn't say today; I should say this week's triple shot, but I'm filming today, is going to be dedicated to Iron Maiden. Yes. But I've decided to do this triple shot in a great way. First album we're going to do, going to be a Paul Di'Anno album. Second album we're going to do, Bruce Dickinson. Third album I'm going to do, Blaze Bayley. That's right. I'm going to cover all three vocalists for Iron Maiden with this triple shot. And I do dig all three vocalists for different reasons, which I will cover each vocalist respectively in their review, since this is what I'm looking at in this particular set of reviews, because there's only two albums I can choose from for Paul and for Blaze, and I picked what many would consider one of Bruce's worst albums with Iron Maiden. So, this is going to be fun. Alright. Let's get into Iron Maiden's Killers. That's right. Okay, second release from Iron Maiden. Now, if I remember correctly, I believe I have already covered Iron Maiden. So I went and double checked it, and yes. Okay, so it was Iron Maiden that I've already covered. So that means this is now the second and the last album I will be covering with Paul Di'Anno as the lead vocalist of the band. He is not the only member of the band that left, at least at some point after this album. Realistically, there are three members of the what's considered the core Iron Maiden, the pure Iron Maiden group in here. You got Steve Harris, Dave Murray, and Adrian Smith on this album. And if I remember correctly, I think this was Adrian Smith's first album with the band. I will have to double check, but that's what Up Here is for. We had, I believe it was Clive Burr on the drums, and he was around for one more album after this, and this was, like I said, Paul Di'Anno's last album. Now, I love Paul Di'Anno's vocals, and the reason I love his vocals is his range is easier for me to hit. He's not a great vocalist, but the way he does vocals, the way he will go and attack these high notes like he shouldn't, or, he does everything wrong as a vocalist, and it sounds great. It's also why his voice couldn't hold up the way it should. This is, out of Di'Anno's two albums, this is not my favorite. This is not the one that I would choose to listen to the most often. As a matter of fact, I will listen to this one less often than Iron Maiden, and believe it or not, this is the hardest Iron Maiden album for me to review, because it is the one I have had in my collection for the shortest amount of time. I actually just went out and bought a couple Iron Maiden albums literally yesterday. One is a digital reissue of something I already have, and one is a digital reissue of something I didn't have, but I've listened to 1,000 times because I borrowed it from my buddy Drew all the time. I was never a big fan of the Killers album, but when I found it in a store used, and it's the digitally enhanced and remastered version for $10, I picked it up because it was totally worth it. It's still a good album, it's just not one that I'm huge into, and I'll explain why. Now, one of the great parts about this album is this album has a real kind of proggy element, and there's a lot of cool instrumental work on this album. So much so that the album opens up with an instrumental, The Ides of March. Great way to open the album. It's got a great feel, sets the album up perfectly, really kind of gets you ramped up and going for the album. And then from there it kicks into Wrathchild. One of the most popular songs from the Paul Di'Anno era, And it is the only song off this album that you can almost guarantee to hear live. And even then, they don't necessarily do it live all the time anymore. I think Bruce is kind of staying away from it more and more just because of the way you have to hit certain notes in it. It's a good song. I've never been a fan of Wrathchild, though. I always kind of thought it was a kind of song, especially compared to other songs on the first album. Even compared to the next song, which is Murders in the Rue Morgue, obviously based off of the Poe story. Starts off nice and mellow, works up, gets fast and hard. It's really kind of cool the way the song's done. I like the changes in it. I like the way it bounces around. Really kind of has that prog atmosphere in it. I like how it'll jump from going like full tilt kind of metalish almost into a kind of a laid back kind of rock groove and then go back into a full tilt kind of metal again. Really kind of fun that way. That is followed up by Afterlife. Okay. If you have ever listened to Metallica's Motorhead, the intro, the ba-doom, 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 I swear to God that was Lars trying to master and learn this drum riffage. Now, I will say Clive Burr on the drums is a lot more textured, a lot more interesting than I find Nico to be. Nico McBrain. And I like Nico. I think Nico is an amazing drummer. I've seen him live. He has got so much energy, so much oof. But Maiden's first two drummers, one you never really hear on recordings, sort of. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and check the first album again. Go watch my interview about the first album. That's where I talk about who's drumming on that album. But the drums were a lot more textured, a lot more proggish, a lot less straightforward. Nico is a little more straightforward, I find. It's cool all the same, though. But Afterlife, drumming is really kind of cool on this song. I really dig it. I really get into it. And the guitars at the beginning is this cool kind of almost surf rock like hook. This really cool. I really dig it. I really like the sound of it. And then all of a sudden it just kicks into this like fast, straight going at it hard rocker, you know. After that, we get into Genghis Khan or Genghis Khan. Sorry, I'm reading notes off the screen. That's how. Yeah, all these new albums I've been picking up as well. I've been picking up new albums, so I can do new album reviews as well. So I'm kind of like I'm listening to so much new music right now that while I'm listening to this album, I'm trying to remember everything on this album. An album I'm not overly fond of as well to do the review. I had to write myself some notes down here, which I usually try not to do. I usually try to wing it. Genghis Khan or Genghis Khan, depending on which way you want to say it. Instrumental track. Great battle-y kind of vibe to it. I really dig it. I really like the sound to it. I really like what they do with the song. And it really is kind of fun, you know. The one thing I will say, though, is the love of these horrible people that really, by today's standards, I mean, if we're going to hold people accountable by today's standards for horrible things they did, man. Whew, that Khan family. Whew. Anyways, moving on. We get to Innocent Exile. Opens up some really inspired bass playing by Steve Harris. Really cool. It's almost like a mini solo in the beginning. Very proggy-like, you know? And then it kicks into a mix of basic Maiden, but it has a lot of that cool dueling lead you want to hear with Maiden, and that kind of helps get you through it a little bit. Which goes into Killers. Killers, I think, is one of those songs that really is underused from this album. I think one of the reasons it's underused is it does have that standard gallop. It kind of sounds like everything else after a while. In a live mix, it would be great, but I think it might also get lost a little. Now, the galloping in Killers is not your standard galloping, though. There's this cool galloping slide the guitars do. So they're galloping, but they're sliding while they're doing it. And it just really sets this song off in a really cool way. Really gives it a really great kind of vibe and atmosphere. And now that they've got the triple guitar, I really think they should pull this out and work it for live with 3 guitars, man. Have a little more fun with it. It'd be really cool. That's followed up by one of the coolest, most standout songs on this album. Totally trippy, prog rock kind of affair. Reminds me of early Genesis when Peter Gabriel was still in the band, or maybe even a little bit of King Crimson. It's a little bit of a slower tune, but it's very beautiful. But the texturing and the nuances and the way they move around in the song and stuff like that, fantastic song. Like, seriously, the big standout on this album. Not a song that I'd want to hear live. It's not a live set kind of tune. But if I were to put together like not a greatest hits package, because Maiden's got way too many of those, but a hidden treasures kind of package, you miss these songs kind of package, Prodigal Son is definitely one of those songs I'd put on there for that reason. That goes into Purgatory. Purgatory, great drumming, awesome drumming. The drumming on this song is what makes this song. However, the drumming on this song isn't enough to make it sound different than, say, Running Free, Sanctuary, half of the first album, half of this album. It really is great drumming, but it's great drumming on a standard Maiden kind of track just plugged in there. That goes into Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone to me is basically just a complete album filler. There's no saving grace to Twilight Zone to me. And it's a good tune. It's an album filler. Then we get into Drifter. And Drifter is the song that closes out the album. Drifter is half a follow-up and half kind of duplicating Running Free. It makes it kind of, in its own little way, sort of fall flat, because it's kind of trying to be Running Free, but it's not Running Free, and Running Free is just this amazing, great song that's on the first album. Such a great song that, it's still around to this day. And it's a standard live classic that everybody loves. It sucks when they don't play Running Free live, as far as I'm concerned. But it's a great track to close out the album. It really does. The similarities in there, the vibes in there. There's even elements in there that replicate the song Iron Maiden as well, I find. And because of all that put together, it's a good way to close out this album. I don't know if Harris was trying to get kind of a vibe where there was a similar feel to closing out this album as close to the original album as possible. It's hard to say, but it works, I think. At least on here it really works. Now, as I mentioned, this is the enhanced CD version, so if I popped it into the computer, I could also watch the video for Wrathchild and Killers taken from Live at the Rainbow. I haven't watched any of those. If I want to watch Maiden stuff, honestly, I will YouTube it, or I'll go through one of the DVDs, because I got their DVD collections. There is a good booklet in here. The booklet is chocked full of pictures and song lyrics, and it's good. It's fun. I like that they put a lot of the band manager, the crew members, stuff like that in here. It's really good that way. It's these packages, these enhanced CD packages, they were great releases. They really were. I like the ones that I've got out of them, and that's why when I run across these, if they're the ones I don't have, I will pick them up. Also, they got these cool little things on the side there, so if you get all of them and you line them all up, they create one great little picture, which is the first Iron Maiden album cover, essentially. It was a really cool, kind of smart, cute way of doing these when they reissued all of them. The one bitch I'm going to say at this point with Iron Maiden is, oh my god, milking the remasters and milking the... Oh, it's horrible. Like, they released all the original catalog, and then in the late 90s, yeah, late 90s, this is 98 is when this remaster was done. So, CDs started becoming a mega regular thing, let's say around 88. They were outselling records by, I think, 91 or 92, if not before that. Records were basically gone by 91 or 92, unless you were buying used. It was rare to find new. You were either cassette or CD. And by 98, so they released these remasters, which were great in 98 because the quality was necessary and it really sounded sharp. But here we are now, we're into 2020, and about, what was it, 2-3 years ago, they did all the remasters again, the digitally remastered level. I will not buy any of those new digitally remastered digipack versions of albums I bought that are the enhanced. So I'm not going to know what the big difference is between those. I'm sure there is a difference. I can tell you that the new enhanced ones sound great compared to the original releases because I've listened to that. I'll get into those as I get into those albums. But this album, not an Iron Maiden album I would recommend for the casual listener or someone that wants to get into Iron Maiden. If you want to get into Iron Maiden, but you're into punk stuff like that, go with the original. If you're into punk or early metal or stuff like that, raw kind of metal, go with the Iron Maiden album, not the Killers album. I know my buddy Drew would disagree with me. I know he prefers Killers over Iron Maiden because he usually doesn't like the first album from a band, or doesn't like it as much as other albums. Whatevs. That's my views. Anyways, let me know your views. That's what the comment section's for. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, peace, love, take care.